What am I doing at 4:45 a.m. in the morning on May 9th, 2025? Apparently, I can't get to sleep, so I'm deciding to read a poem instead. Wrote this last Friday while I went to Imprint. Imprint is um, well, Imprint is a publishing house, but First Friday is a monthly poetry open mic event and author reading event that I try to go to every single first Friday of every month. And the last couple times I've been able to do that. And so every time I go, I share at least a couple of poems, up to three. And I wrote this while I was sitting there. So here goes. Do your job long enough, and the mysteries of life become filtered through lenses carved by the repeated mental grooves. I like to see my journey akin to a vehicle flying in space. But existence known isn't a network of neurons firing continuously, interpreting the sensations taken by organic receivers. The trajectory of my life isn't designed to follow an idealized path optimized for delta V efficiency. Though I do draw out grand plans, perturbations with occasional outliers varying magnitudes from people, situations, and possibly God introduces unexpected deviations from nominal. I've realized there is no optimizing life, there is only living it. And really, that is how I feel. In the sense that much of my own life, at least when I was younger, I thought needs to be planned out. Everything has to be determined in the sense like by this age you're doing this, by that age you're doing that. My parents, for instance, seem to have structured out their lives like first of all go to college, after that go get a job, get married, have kids, and then for them they decided to come to America, so they had to figure out that process. Come to America, then have well, they only had one kid. It was at that time it was me, and then for instance, when my mom at one point she decided, hey, need to support the family. I need to go to San Francisco, work in the government. Working at a university isn't going to pay a whole lot. So she went to San Francisco for a while, worked for U.S. Customs, got in there, then came back when they had a job opening back in Atlanta. And so for her, it's always been, there's like this master plan that at work. For my own life, if I was following their dictates, I would have long had, you know, probably a nice family with kids now, and not have quote unquote wasted 6 years of my, I guess, early slash mid 20s doing, well, a lot of different things. Basically trying to figure out who I was and doing odd jobs here and there. But my point is, my trajectory in life was definitely not optimized. And there were a lot of things that came unpredictably. Naturally, like in the last few years, whenever I think I am getting quote unquote on track, that's what I think I'm actually maybe getting off of track if I'm following somebody else's plan. So in the trajectory of my life, if I'm following the path that is told by my parents or society as the most efficient or the best path, I may be deviating from my own path. My like what I really want to do, which may not be the most quote unquote efficient, whatever that means. If the most efficient path is, make as much money as possible and pop out a few kids and just have a family like that, get a house. Well, in some senses, I could be said to be far behind the curve. But that's not the rubric I'm going to go by. I think for about 2/3 of my life, that was, I was judging myself by that standard. and it's a lot of pressure. And frankly, it's somebody else's rule book in terms of what is actually really important. So to me, what is important is self growth. That's number one, and that means in the sense that am I stagnating or am I growing, like emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, um, mentally, physically? These are all very important. Um, I suppose, I just spent a lot of money at Body and Brain, which is something I used to do. That helped me out a lot while I was going through some of my roughest times in my life about 2 years ago. Did that for about a year, a little more than a year, actually. Maybe almost 2 years that I did that. But anyways, yeah, like the integration of all of that together, your body and your brain and your spirit. Um, and that's something historically I've neglected those developments, or at least I would focus on one and neglect the. And most of my life it was like intellectual development, and then you know physically I went, and then spiritually it maybe go off by the side. Um, and also emotionally, like for most of my life I didn't look at myself like that deeply and consistently, I should say. So I'm still going through therapy. That's been very helpful. I feel like overall, I am much happier than a few months ago. Definitely happier than last year, like the majority of last year, I would say. And it was like at least internally. So, and everything really is dependent on the internal state in that sense. I mean, I still feel pretty sad sometimes. Um, but I think that's part of the human condition. And frankly, there's been a lot of experiences I've gone through that if I wasn't feeling sad, that would be a little strange. So I have to be thankful for the emotions I'm able to carry with me. Some of the more intense ones, I can maybe put it aside, not put it aside, but let it just filter through me so I can, ideally live a happy, joyful life. And that's the second part, right? So I said one was what's important to me is growth. Um, and like I said, I'm continuously growing. I'm learning new things, not just intellectually. At work, I am definitely learning new things still, but like learning new things from different people, meeting different people, learning more things about myself. Like I'm still reading a lot, reflecting. Obviously, this poem that I just read is definitely is like reflection in terms of creative expression. Um, Speaking of creative expression, just putting it out there, I am also hosting or co-hosting my first poetry open mic at East Downtown in Houston on May 23rd. So that's exciting. I mean, that's a growth right there. Like, oh wow, I'm helping co-organize an event. I'm going to be emceeing it, or one of the MCs, and so that's yeah. And I'm going to help inspire other people to come and read and so forth, and offer others a platform. So I'm pretty excited about that. Um, but going back to what I was saying, so one, self growth in all these avenues: spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. Two, I think overall it's just happiness. Like, what can I do? Not like in a selfish way. Like, I don't ever want my happiness to diminish somebody else's happiness, but like, how can I, live a joyful, free life in that sense, right? Like, I don't want to bring stress to other people's lives unless it's absolutely necessary. And ideally, like, I'm able to have enough compassion and self-love to, to not bring stress to my own life. um and part of that is like taking care of myself, which sounds easy. Well, it's actually not easy. It sounds like something adults should be able to do, but for much of my life I've not been able to do that. Like, I would get frustrated if I wasn't feeling optimal all the time, and which is silly because who is feeling 100% all the time? They're not. Right now, for instance, I could have been laying in bed wondering why I can't get to bed and getting, I don't know, be like, hey, what's going on here? Instead, I suppose I'm making this video explaining how I'm feeling and overall feeling somewhat better about it. Plus, also wanted to just read this poem. Um, yeah, so life goes on. So reiterating self growth, joyful happiness, actually real happiness, not the you know the temporary highs of life, so to speak. I suppose if I go socialize with friends, I enjoy that, so I will feel happy. But like, what is what is it beyond that, right? Like, what about when for instance, when I'm by myself and I suddenly have a lot of self-doubt or painful memories from the past rise up? How do I handle that? um do I run away from it, or do I just experience it? What do I do with it, right? So lately I've been learning a lot to just reflect on it, and sometimes just sitting there helps, or reading books. They help me immensely. And I don't like to read to just escape the world, but more to understand it better. So like, um, well, yeah. I mean, went to actually the Houston Public Library recently to check out a few. Uh, like I think the three of them are Chinese authors. One is one about some, like, I think Pythagorean theorem, but the Chinese apparently made it. So that, anyways, that was an intellectual book. But there was one about a Chinese author, a Hong Kong author, who is writing about experiences while she's undergoing a lot of pain from breast cancer that she got. And it's really illuminating reading how everyday things, she suddenly sees everything in a new light and has to experience that pain, and that whole process. She's writing about it. It's translated, but I don't know. When I read things like that, it puts human life into perspective, right? Like I don't have to go through it's like living someone else's life vicariously. Despite how painful it is, it may, it gives me more, I feel like it develops empathy in a way. Um, a lot of these kinds of stories or biographies or memoirs or whatever you call them, these varieties of types. Um, yeah, and really, I think that's about it. And like I said, I'm constantly trying to figure out new ways where, like, I could bring joy, and also it's not just joy to my own life, but other people's lives. Like, I've been holding these painting parties, as another example. So I already mentioned the poetry on May 23rd. I'm holding these painting parties where I do invite people over. Some friends of mine. It's a little small group, not always the same people, but just getting together, talking, and painting, um, with no merit, really, no judgment, artistic skill. But I provide the supplies, and we have a good time, and that's a creative bonding experience that costs almost no money, since I don't have to go to painting with a twist or whatever. Um, yeah, and it's just fun. I can play my own music, and we're just talking and laughing and whatever, sharing things. Um, and at the end of the night, each of us have a painting we can show each other. So I'm trying to keep that up, like once a month, doing that. Um, I already talked about going. I think in my last little video, I was talking about going out camping. I do plan to join the outdoors club here, whatever they're called, and hopefully get into more adventures that way, since I do love nature. But I often find myself fearful of just going there by myself. So, and also it feels more fun if there's other people around, that also enjoy it as well, and collectively share these experiences. Uh, so yeah, so exciting times. Really, there's a lot to look forward to. So I'm actually very, I'm not saying life is perfect, but there's a lot of things that I'm thankful for, and a lot of things I'm learning. So that, I will say good night for now. It's 5:00 a.m.